viewers from all over, we'd like to welcome you and also welcome Madeleine. Hi,
Thank
Madeleine.
you, Nayyir. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Madeleine, and I'm looking forward for this event. Very excited for this event.
We're excited to have you. We know that our time is tight, so we will try to get through as much as we can, as swiftly and as efficiently as possible. To the viewers, there's a question and answer section at the top of your tab if you're on your computer, possibly on your phone as well. You'll see a Q&A section. Feel comfortable dropping your questions there. We will have a session or a period where we'll be able to pull those questions out, and your questions will be asked directly for Madeleine or to anyone that you know is a part of Asia society as a whole. Let's get into it. So Madeleine, tell me a little bit about your background.
All right. So I'm born and raised in Indonesia, as you already introduced me, and I moved to China in 2013. And I came to China to study my bachelor's degree, but ended up loving the new life that I have in Beijing. It seems like a very cool city to live in. I feel like I'm constantly learning new things every day, seeing the new things every day. So I decided to apply for a scholarship and ended up getting a scholarship to pursue my master's degree in customs administration back in 2018. And I graduated last year, actually, virtually because of the pandemic. And since then, I've been working with Influence Matters and also growing Startup Grind Beijing on the side. So that's a little bit about me.
Just a little bit, which is a lot. It sounds like a lot, and it sounds very impactful. That's awesome. Congratulations on the graduation.
Thank you, Nayyir.
Yeah. So China, why China? Or how did your interest evolve or emerge specifically towards China?
So I visited China as tourist back when I was in middle school and high school. And, like towards the end of my high school, when we were all graduating, I was looking for a country to pursue my higher educations. And actually, China was not on my first list because I was very, how would you say this? Like scared of the Chinese characters because I could speak the language, but, reading the characters was very hard for me and challenging for me. But then I came to realize that, this shouldn't stop me from learning new languages. I wouldn't say new languages, but this shouldn't stop me to even enhance my Chinese skills. So I took it on as a challenge for myself and decided to move to Beijing and pursue my bachelor's degree in China, in Beijing. Yeah. So, and also the reason why I like China so much is because, with all the technologies and all the people, everything's so convenient. Like I can just go to my university with the subway and it's pretty affordable. And then if I want to go to Shanghai or any other cities in China, I can use the fast train as well. And it takes me like 4 hours by fast train. So all the technologies and all the fast growth that I'm seeing is the reason why I'm stuck here in China.
Yeah, stuck. Yeah, that's usually what happens. Yeah, you go there and you just immerse, and that sounds like what
Exactly.
you did. It sounds like what you
Exactly.
did. Yeah, that's awesome. Great story, and definitely can relate to that. And I'm sure many of our viewers or listeners, they'll be able to relate in some way or the other, just in interest alone if they haven't made it there just yet. So good to know that you were inspired to overcome that fear of the characters. A lot of people are fearful of the characters because they're different. They're a lot more complex than most of us are used to. But glad that you
That's
overcame
true.
that and faced that fear.
Thank you.
So, I mean, most definitely. So Startup Grind Beijing, how are they facilitating, fostering, or creating an entrepreneurial ecosystem in China or in Beijing?
So to start, we actually do have a lot of entrepreneurs and founders in our community, but there was no platform that would connect them together, and that's why we decided to build Startup Grand Beijing. So Startup Grand Beijing is a platform, and then we host a lot of events, at least one events per month, or sometimes even 2 to 3, or sometimes 4. So there's event every week where we connect with different entrepreneurs or even startup enthusiasts who are not entrepreneurs themselves yet, but they are looking to quit their full-time job and start their own businesses, let's say in China, but they do not know how to start. So by creating these events, people get to mingle, they get to interact, and they get to learn from each other. about their entrepreneurial journey and challenges. Yeah.
So it's building a very, very vibrant community
It
around the
is.
culture of entrepreneurship and some
Right.
resources and tools, it sounds like.
Exactly. And also not to mention that, because we are a very vibrant and active community, we also work with a lot of partners, sponsors, and also with the local government to offer opportunities and support to the local founders, let it be foreign founders or the local founders in Beijing and China.
Highly important to get the support of government. Yeah, would you agree with that? The local
Yes.
government, at the very least, to be able to operate something so important to an economy internationally, domestically. So on that, along those lines, how is that ecosystem integrated globally? And I'm speaking about the startup grind entrepreneurial ecosystem. How is that integrated globally throughout the world?
Mm. Well, we do have a global conference every year, every February in Silicon Valley, and usually each year our team will attend and we'll also promote it with our community so they could come and attend and network with everyone. But because of the pandemic, the global conference this year was done virtually,
Right.
and also it allows even more people you know, who might have very tight schedule and not able to fly to Silicon Valley to attend virtually and still manage to connect with their prospects virtually, so to say. And at Startup Grind, we are not only hosting events, but we also create contents and a lot of programs that will better cater entrepreneurs. Even sometimes we have the university chapters that will even help university students who are looking to start their own startups at a young age in the university years.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Startups, and I'm sure even scale ups, as you all focus on as well. So COVID, we all know in many different ways, COVID has been a global disruptor.
It is.
It's hindered a great deal of travel between U.S. and China, to from to,
Mhm.
um, as well as many other issues with just running a business in general, especially on the level of entrepreneurship. What role is Startup Grind playing? I'm sorry. Yes, what role is Startup Grind playing in connecting people digitally across those borders with COVID affecting these suspended plans and travels? I know you mentioned the conference.
Mhm.
That's one role. What is
Mhm.
another role in that space that you might be able to speak to?
Well, obviously, I'm not sure if you know that China is basically back to normal again because the country is putting a very tight measures in, managing the COVID situation. So inside China itself is pretty much very normal. People get to attend event offline and everything. But those that used to travel to China to attend trade shows or expos are not
Yeah.
able to do that. Um, So that's the bad side of it. But through virtual events, we've actually seen a lot more collaborations between chapters across the world. So to give an example, actually earlier in the pandemic last year, usually we would collaborate between chapters in China, but because of the pandemic, we were able to collaborate or co-organize an event with our chapters in Paris, for example, or in the US, for example, and that could have never happened before, pre-pandemic era. And I guess it's a silver lining that because of COVID and because we can host virtual events everywhere in the world, we see a lot more collaborations that is happening across the world.
That's and that's very vital to the survival of a lot of these ideas or startups and entrepreneurial plans. I think that is just outstanding. It's excellent. Quite a resource Startup Grind has become, from my experience with them while I was there in China as well to now, and it's just really good and refreshing to hear about all you all are doing, especially from your lens. Um, do you still see opportunities for entrepreneurs to start businesses in China or to start a I'm sorry, or a Western-based business to compete in the China market? Do you still see those opportunities?
I do actually do because in the field where I'm working for Influence Matters, it's where we help and support foreign scale up startups or even MNCs to tap into the China market, right? So there are a lot of opportunities for, tech startups or innovative startups to tap into the China market as long as they understand best the China entrepreneurship ecosystem. Because as you may know, China is a very unique country, and the
Yeah.
laws and regulations are totally different than the US, for
Yeah.
example, or any part of the world, so to say. So the short answer is yes.
Short answer is yes, and that's
Yeah,
always the best answer.
exactly.
What are the main challenges that entrepreneurs and innovators or creators are facing when doing the cross-border expansion? So not necessarily starting a business in China, but doing that expansion into the market. What are some of the biggest, I guess, challenges or opportunities that you're seeing or that you're noticing or that's being talked about at Startup Grind?
Well, I think the number one is they do not understand the culture very well, and also the language barrier, because not everyone in China speaks English. Unfortunately, it's not like in some other Asian countries where can still speak English with some of the local government and stuff like that. But in China, most people speak Chinese. So not having someone who is familiar with the China market would be very challenging when you are trying to tap into the China market. And also the requirements to, let's say, expand or tap into the China market is also very challenging, and it's very how would you say it? I wouldn't say it's difficult, but there are a lot of steps that you have to be paying attention to. And a lot of people didn't do their homework on that task, for example. And, different from any other countries in the world, China, if you ask, let's say, mm, cross borders agency, China, they would say that relationship with government is very important. But usually in other countries in the West or other countries in Asia, relationship with government might not be very important. They will prefer building relationship with the local investors or angel investors. But in China, gaining support from the government is very important. Another thing is that the media ecosystem is very different in China, because like how China is a very close country and
Yeah.
it's censored, so it's not the same with other media communities in the world. I would say media ecosystem in other part of the world, so to say.
Yeah, and I
Mhm.
think you spoke to the most critical challenges and opportunities. They're one and the same. You spoke to language, which can definitely be a big issue if you're trying to market a business or an idea
Mhm.
to a community that doesn't speak your language. You need to speak, theirs if you're planning to enter their market. So that's something that we want to stay mindful of as entrepreneurs who are trying to expand across borders anywhere in the
Mhm.
world.
That
You
is
also
true.
spoke to and you also spoke to culture, which I agree. You said culture and the political realm, they're one and the same, especially when it comes to China. This political spirit and party is almost as much of the culture as the language.
Mhm.
It's something that families and generations grow up with, the role of the government and their families. So I think that is important. I think you hit it on the head. It's very important for
Mhm.
one to identify the most important parts of the culture, whether it's forming a relationship deeply with the government or forming a deeper relationship with the community of financiers and so forth. Um, I just think that you hit it on the head with that. And I remember reading a story some years ago about how Starbucks, they had to enter China, and they had to be it was a very different approach. You just don't go and drop in there. They had to really focus on the family as their entrance into China through their franchise.
Yeah, the Starbucks example is a very good example. So I did learn about Starbucks approach entering China market a lot during my bachelor's degree, and we use that as our best examples mostly. And I would say it's the best example because Starbucks in the US or in other parts of the world seems like it's not a very expensive coffee; it's an affordable coffee. But in China, it seems like a luxury coffee where white
Yeah.
collars or the middle higher level class will drink, but if you're lower class, you wouldn't drink Starbucks and drink, I don't know, coffee from 7-Eleven, or you might not even
Or
drink coffee at
Costa or
all.
something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's a very
Yeah.
interesting example that you shared.
I think it is. I agree with you. I agree with you. So I'm going to take a pause here on our questions. We just have a few more here that I have on the list. But I want to go to George Alexander, I believe, or Jorge, I'm not sure. He's got a great question. It's kind of along the lines of the pandemic. So if you don't mind, I'll ask you that question and we can try to address it. Have you noticed an influence of the pandemic in new startups in China? And he goes on to say, meaning an increased focus on health tech and communication solutions. I know here in the US, there's a big push behind health-related startup app and so forth, tech startup and so forth, especially when it comes to vaccination cards and things of this nature, and exposure applications. Have you noticed an influence?
Yes, definitely yes. And I've seen a lot of, let's say, foreign startups or scale-ups that are doing, what would you call this? Like the shipment for the vaccinations entering to the China market. Logistic companies are, it's very hot right now in China as well. As you may know, China is one of the biggest distributor of vaccines to the fellow Asian countries. So I could say yes, definitely. But in China itself, um, I wouldn't say COVID is the main topic now. It was a hot topic last year, but since things got normal again in China, it seems like COVID health tech related products is no longer that booming anymore, so to say, in China.
What is the hot topic, if I might ask?
So there are a lot of, I'm not sure if you know, but there are startups that are doing, what do you call this? Inflatable vest that could help, let's say, elderly when they fell down, and with a single hit on the floor, it will puff up, so it helps to protect the elderly because the number of elderly in China is growing as well. So a lot of health startups are also focusing on that aspects as well. And another
Wow.
thing, yeah, it is. It's very interesting to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good focus, protective gear for the elderly, and especially in such a large population where a great deal of the population is elderly. They're hanging around a lot longer than they do in the US, I tell you that. So however we can help and support them and preserve them, that is just awesome. That is awesome. Very good. Well, great question, George or Jorge. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing you. I think it's George, but great question. Thank you. Reminder to most definitely. And reminder to all of the other viewers and listeners, please feel comfortable. I see many of you are active and live. Please feel comfortable sharing your questions. We will do our very best to get the questions asked right here inside of the chat. So if you don't mind, I'll continue to ask a couple of the questions that I have on this list.
Sure.
Very good. So being from Indonesia, do you see entrepreneurs leveraging their China knowledge, expertise in Southeast Asia and or in their home country?
There are a lot. So as you know, I know a lot of Indonesian alumni that did not ended up staying in China because most of us usually come back to our home country and either start our own startups or work in Indonesia. Staying in China is not the most popular route for us Indonesians. And for my friends who comes back, a lot of them do actually work with MNCs like ByteDance, and then also China Commercial Airlines, and the phone company like Oppo or Xiaomi or Huawei and many others. But there are also many of them that actually comes back to Indonesia and start their own startups, let it be a tech startups that they get inspired from how convenient China tech ecosystem is for the users. So they will take that as inspiration and build similar things for Indonesians. And also, a lot of trading companies like import and export, because import and export still remains one of the most popular route for us.
As importing, right? So
stuff for Indonesia to China. Yeah.
So would you say you see knowledge being leveraged more from Indonesia into China, or more from China into Indonesia? The knowledge in general, and those same businesses and ideas that you spoke to. Do you see that happening more from Indonesia to China, or more from China to Indonesia?
Definitely from China to Indonesia.
Wow. Very interesting.
Definitely. Yeah, because we do have a lot of investors as well from China that started to invest in the local startups or scale-ups or SMBs here in Indonesia. So that's
That's
why there are
fantastic.
a lot of knowledge that comes from China is being utilized here in Indonesia. I mean, there are also like some knowledge that are being utilized from Indonesia to China, mainly because, you know, ByteDance is ByteDance TikTok is very popular
Yeah.
in Indonesia, and Indonesia is one of their biggest market. So I guess the approach for TikTok, you know, they need to learn and understand well the Indonesian market, so to say.
Right. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, I think I can say the same. I think uh, I may be a little imbalanced with it, but I think I also see a great deal of exchange of knowledge leveraging. I do see a lot of import export and big ideas coming from China. Once someone goes and spends time in China, they come
Mm-hmm.
back home to the West and they are blazing, blazing the trail. I do see more industrious opportunities as well that way. Um, as far as innovative and creativity, I see more going into China, just kind of adding a bit more of a flair to the many great ideas that are already there. There's a great partnership, I believe, in the entrepreneurship ecosystem between the West, the East, Southeast, and so forth. Globally, I think there's a great partnership with our different meeting spaces. And so
That's true.
there's an yeah, there's another question from the audience. I think it's a good question to ask. From my experience and from yours more particularly, how easy is it? Now, this question comes from someone who's anonymous. I don't know, so we'll just
Mm-hmm.
ask it. How easy is it for foreigners to find jobs in Chinese startups? What are the best ways to find such jobs? And I know I can answer right off top. One of the best ways to get into that ecosystem is to make sure you join Startup Grind. But I'll let you address the question.
I guess it's one of the way, but you know, you don't always have to enter the Chinese startup to work in China. There are actually a lot of wholly foreign owned or the foreign owned startups that are
Absolutely.
you know, running in China. So if you are not confident with your Chinese skills or your Chinese level, you can start by working with startups that are owned by foreigners, but you know, they are well integrated in the China market. Um, so finding in China, you know, I used to be a recruiter back in 2016 to 2018. So
Oh, awesome.
back then, you know, interviews are a lot different than how interview is in, let's say, in the West or any other part of the world. So usually the HR would prefer interview in person, and you know they would not give you the right direct answer if you get it or not. Usually it takes some time for them to tell you that, oh, you actually, I'm sorry but you didn't get the job. But I'm not sure how it works now because of the pandemic situations. And I remember when I was working as a recruiter, a lot of HR would prefer having a face-to-face interview rather than a Skype interview. So that's why they will always say that I prefer someone, candidates that are already in China, who are looking to, you know, forward to work in China, versus candidates who are interested to work in China that they are still back in their home country. So those are the trends. But the thing that you mentioned just now, Nayyir, is also very important. Not only whoever wants to work in China needs to network, but they also need to find the right ecosystem to tap in. And I believe the best way to find a job is through connections. So, for example, if you are volunteering as in, let's say, Asian society, and then you're interested to work in China, and then you're connected with someone from Hong Kong or from any other Chinese cities, that could, you know, introduce you to some jobs, that will be the best way than going through LinkedIn or going through all these Chinese job platforms to apply for jobs, because most likely, unfortunately, you will not get any reply from them. So I
Yeah,
hope I answered the question.
I think you did. I think you answered it very well. You gave a lot of good tips there and ways for people to connect with people who may
Mm-hmm.
hold information into opportunities, connecting to the ecosystems, connecting to the right community. WeChat, you can find your community for sure,
Exactly.
or a community that can help you for sure. And then starting, like you said, from home base, finding out what companies, may be smaller, large, or mid-sized, may be running and operating completely owned by members or natives from your country in China that might be able to use someone like yourself with whatever your skill sets are. And that just starts by, like you said, tapping in, reaching out,
and network, and just build your
and network.
connections. Exactly.
Yeah, you got to build those connections. The value of that is too important. I can write a book on the value of networking and building it. So thank you. Awesome.
Thank you.
What advice would you give a new graduate who wants to become an entrepreneur with a business in China or planning to compete in the China market? Now, I know you addressed how someone may work towards going to get a job, but this is a new graduate who's looking to become an entrepreneur, maybe start a business in China, or maybe create a business to enter into the China market from their home base. What advice would you give someone that's just graduated?
As long as your startup solves the problems that the community is trying to solve, I think that's a very great basis, because there are a lot of startups that just started a business to join the trend, but they do not really give real solutions to the problems that the community is facing. So if you have products or services that tackles the challenges that the community or the country is facing, then that's off a great start. And then also do your homework and do your research, as many universities in Beijing at least, or in China, across China, actually offer entrepreneurship programs for their students. So they guide them with, studies, and then also researchers about the China ecosystem, and then they offer them resources to work with mentor directly, or, to get first-hand insights from the local entrepreneurs and stuff like that. So do your homework, make sure product solves the problems, and I guess also learn about your target market audience, because as bringing back to this Starbucks example, everyone in America or everyone in Indonesia, for example, we drink coffee, so probably it's easier for Starbucks to tap into the Indonesian market. But with China, because most of people there drink tea, so Starbucks have to localize with their brand. So they offer tea options like milk tea or green tea options and stuff like that. So be very knowledgeable about their target audience and learn about their behavior, like for example, their income and their spending behavior and stuff like that. So those are the main 3 tips that I can think of right now.
Again, you're on fire. Again, to kind of cover what she said, I believe Madeleine said 2-1, solve a problem, or illuminate one that's already solved, but not all the way, or not well enough, or not for your generation. Perhaps really examine your pain points personally in your life, socially or otherwise, and look around you, and look to if you're going to create something, look to cure that, or get with other entrepreneurs who are working in that same environment. She also said, research your target audience. If you're going to enter a business into someone's market, the idea that you have created in your country, at your home base, may not be an idea that even makes sense or matters in another market. Research that market. Figure out exactly what you're going to cure for them. So if Starbucks was solving a problem for the common coffee culture here in America, they can take coffee to China, but how do they cure that for China? What is the problem there that they need to solve? And how do they enter? So those are some of the important things. And then you mentioned another good point. Remind me of the third point, because I did the 2, and then there was one that I skipped past to come back to.
Oh, okay. So look into universities or any organizations that offers resources for young entrepreneurs, or entrepreneurs, enthusiasts who want to start their startups in China. And usually there are a lot of university programs that offers you support with registering your company, because registering your company in China could be very complicated and it takes a lot of steps. But having someone that understands best the process, like someone from the local government or the local university to help you with that process, would be very helpful. And
absolutely. Absolutely, guys. You make sure, many of you are going to be graduating soon. Some of you not so soon. A lot of you will be visiting China and other places. Take heed to this information. And before we end, we have more questions here popping up. I'm going to address those. And I just want to stop here, reset the room. if anyone has questions and that they'd like addressed by Madeleine, please feel comfortable shooting them. There's a few more that I see here that I will get to momentarily for Madeleine. But also, Madeleine, how can someone reach you? You are on the ground in Beijing. How can they personally connect with you? In what ways? In what ways are you accessible to the viewers here online to contact you for more questions following up after this?
Sure, I can share with you my LinkedIn profile and also my email address. And I'll also share my WeChat ID. So in that case, if you have WeChat, you can always add me on WeChat and we can have conversation there. I'll type in my contact details.
Thank you so much. While you do that, I'll get ready to address the next set of questions to ask them to you. And again, they will be from Anonymous. They will be from Harris Rahman. They will be from another Anonymous, and they will be from Javier. As soon as she shares her screen, we will get to the remainder of those questions. Thank you all for being with us this morning, this afternoon, or this evening, depending on where you are. Be sure to follow Asia Society as well. Asia Society on Instagram, all socials, Asia Society EDU or Asia Society, one word. Madeleine's going to share her information, and if anyone would like to get in contact with me, my information will also be available through this session in the chat.
Sure. I've just shared my contact details on the chat box.
Perfect.
Great.
So feel comfortable, guys, getting in touch with Madeleine directly through the information she has shared with you in the chat box. If you do not see it, please make sure you let me know, and we will try to get that visible for you. So the next question, thank you so much, Madeleine. The next question comes from Anonymous again. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Harris. Would startups, foreign or Chinese, be willing to sponsor work visas?
Yes, they're willing to sponsor work visa, and it depends greatly on the company culture. I think most companies nowadays are very open to hire, foreigners with various backgrounds and very diverse background to work in their company to share different perspective. For example, ByteDance, I know, is hiring a lot of foreigners to work in China, and most of them are actually local. I mean, they are foreigners, but they studied in China and they graduated here in China. That's why they were already familiar with the China market and the China culture. And then it's easier for them to get a job at the MNCs in China or startups in China.
So there you have it, Harris, and anyone else who may be curious. They are willing to. So that is definitely an option to consider in your approach. If you're having trouble figuring out how to get a visa and you don't want to do the old tourist visa hack, there are real options out there. If you got something valuable to bring to the table, someone may take a chance and believe in you enough to help you get sponsored with a work visa.
That is true.
Anonymous asks another question. It may be a new Anonymous, I'm not sure. But anyhow, their question is, how can universities help fresh graduates and young professionals to join startup communities in China?
So to answer that question shortly, the best way to get into the startup ecosystem in China is usually through the alumni network or through the Startup Grind University chapters or through Startup Grind directly. So usually, because we are the only one that is very active, so usually we have university students that will approach us and says that, I'm very interested to work with this company where the speaker is from. Would you mind connecting me with them, please? Or like similar stuff like that. So we'll be more than happy to help connect. And yeah, who knows? Fingers crossed that you get the job through these introductions, I would say. To be short, to conclude everything is first check out with your local or the university alumni network, and then check other startup community in Beijing or in China, like for example, Startup Grind. And also there are a lot of country focused community in China that I've seen recently, and there will be another options to tap into because you meet directly with people from your home country who might already have experience in building startups, and you can share directly with them like your challenges and your questions, and they will be more than happy to help you with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's another question, but I want to go back to your experience. Entering into China, you were invited.
Mm-hmm.
You were invited to study. Well, your first visit as a tourist grew your interest, and then you were actually invited back to study. Correct? You completed a degree, and then you were invited to get a master's. Yeah.
Yes, correct. So I applied for the government scholarship, and luckily I got it. So I managed to finish my master's degree in a top university in Beijing.
I wanted to refer to that specifically. So for the listeners who will be graduating from their first degree, that is an opportunity to pursue. Madeleine was lucky, but there are many others that are like her. Some of you on this call will also be that lucky to be able to enter China that way. And once you enter that way, your opportunities open a lot wider for getting sponsorships to visas because you're already in the country. You'll be able to find communities a lot easier. You'll see what's going on there on the ground. You'll be able to tie yourself in a lot easier if you are not already there or if you don't have a direct connection. So I just wanted to go back to that just to kind of point out your personal experience of how someone may consider attaining their entry as well.
I would suggest looking into the scholarship offers from your embassy, the local China embassy in your cities. And also, if you're interested in pursuing your master's in Beijing, there are actually a scholarship program from Schwarzman scholars, and it is connected to the Tsinghua University, which is one of the top universities in China as well. So to look into those two options, either the China scholarship from the government that you can check with your local embassy, or Schwarzman scholarship Schwarzman program. They also offer great scholarship. Yeah, exactly. They're a perfect program for entrepreneurs, and I know a lot of alumni who ended up either working for MNCs in China or either start their own companies in China. Yeah, a lot of Schwarzman alumni does that.
Wonderful. Thank you. We have another question from Javier. Javier asks, interesting content. Thank you. In Spain, I attended many startup grind events held by Madrid chapter in Google campus. How can I get more involved in China? Could I attend startup grind Beijing events? So Javier, are you currently in Spain? And if so, are you asking once you're there in China, or are you asking virtually and otherwise, how could you attend those types of events? So until he responds, I guess you can try to address what you see there or what you hear from me.
Sure. So I guess attending events in Beijing chapter would be a challenge because as our chapter is focusing more on offline events, majority of our events are done offline now, but there are a lot of chapters in other cities in China that are still doing online events. And they're actually pretty interesting events where they invite cool speakers to talk about, let's say, specific topics related to challenges where foreign startups in China are facing, or just in general about industry insights where they talk about fintech, for example, or any of the tech-related topics in China.
Perfect. Well, he actually did say he is based in Spain now. He's based in Madrid now. So his approach would have to be largely virtual. Whatever is available by joining the community, I would imagine.
Yeah, virtually. Maybe like if Javier, you have my email, I shared my email, which is madeleine@startupgrind.com. You can send me an email, and I can send you the websites where you can stay updated with the events, virtual events in China.
Wonderful. Sawun Kim, I hope I'm not mispronouncing you too bad, Sawun. Sawun asks, how does the publishing market in China, what is it like? I am a student with a comparative literature major in English and Chinese from South Korea. And I'm curious if publishing startups are in need of individuals like me with international background and multiple language skills.
Definitely like based on the profile that you just shared, is something that people would need, like startups or MNCs in China would need. But unfortunately, I'm not very well educated with the publishing industry in China. I'm more aware of the media and the PR ecosystem in China. So unfortunately I cannot share with you um, my answers in that because I'm not well aware. But because you mentioned that you have a very diverse background and you speak multiple languages, I believe it will be an asset for any companies that you are applying for a job for, I would say.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm not as deep as well in the publishing market in Asia, but stay in touch, Sawon. Make sure you grab Madeleine's email so she can at least provide you a direction as things evolve, or as she learns more, you'll learn more. So she's definitely a good person to connect with on social media or LinkedIn or email. Good question. And that might be a great problem for you to work on fixing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's something that we should look into. But as far as I know, publishing companies, they're usually government-owned companies. So
Right.
I'm not sure how it works with that kind of settings. But if it's like private-owned, then you'll have more freedom to work on things your own way.
Right. Madeleine, it's been great having you. We've got just one more question from the audience. We're going to have to wrap up here, but this has been a very, very insightful conversation. And I definitely am happy to have you and to moderate you. And I'm sure everyone else is just as pleased. So I'm going to ask the final question, and then I'm going to give the floor back to you for a final wrap up and anything you'd like to share as we conclude.
Sure.
Okay. Again, Javier says, I volunteered in South Korea for the Olympic Games in 2018. When done, I traveled to Seoul, visited Google office, and met some interesting Korean startups. Many focused on blockchain. How easy is it for Europeans to work for a Chinese startup focused not only on China, but more on the Asia market? Thank you. That was Javier's final question.
It is very interesting questions. Definitely something that Javier, you could research on. There are actually a lot of startups or fast-growing startups in China that are looking to tap into different markets in Asia, or even the US market or the European market. So definitely there are ways for you to work with them depending on the industry that you're interested in, let it be fintech companies or health tech, or I don't know, maybe food tech, because I've seen a lot of alternative protein companies that are from the Western world coming to China. But China, there are a lot of startups in China that are also building alternative proteins for China and outside China. So it's something you can look into, I would say. And I hope I answered your questions. Perhaps do you have any other questions to follow up on this question?
I think you answered it as well. I think the emphasis is not as much on being European. I think the interest, the emphasis is more on what is it that you're able to, what is your set, what is your skill set, what is your value that you're adding. And I think it doesn't matter if you're European or otherwise. If a company feels like you can work together and be useful to each other, I think that's what will really matter. So great question and great response, Madeleine. I appreciate it. You have many, many thank yous from the audience. And we are going to wrap up. 5 minutes. Madeleine, is there anything you'd like to leave us with in closing? Final thoughts, ideas, or maybe a quote or some wise words about startup Grind Beijing, or just the entrepreneurship ecosystem in general?
I would say thank you. Firstly, thank you everyone for attending these sessions, and thank you so much, Nayyir, for doing such a great job moderating this whole session. And if you're ever interested in the startup community in China, please feel free to reach out to me via email or LinkedIn, and I look forward to connecting with everyone. And as one of our values in Startup Grind, help others, which is one of our values, I'll try my best to help every one of you to make your China dream comes true.
Most definitely. And again, Madeleine's contact information has just been entered and shared again by George. Madeleine, they don't see your information. I see George reshared it, your LinkedIn and your startup grind. If you have any others you'd like to share in the chat, please do so that everyone can have access. Again, thank you everyone for tuning in to this talk, China Career Summit. Yeah, it was shared in the main event chat. It should be in the main event chat. So
I'll share my WeChat ID as well in case if you guys have WeChat, or my WhatsApp actually. So I'll put my WhatsApp and WeChat together.
Wonderful. Again, guys, this has been a conversation with Madeleine of Startup Grind Beijing. Thank you so much, everyone.
WhatsApp.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Madeleine. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Pleasure meeting you.